Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Media Matters. Today's story contains graphic description, so viewers and listeners' discretion is advised. Sometime in 2019, Chief Ignatius Odunukwe was in his office when his security man, who mans his gate, walked into his office and said, "Sir, there's this gentleman outside. His name is Bob Ibaji and he's interested in the property you just listed for sale." Chief Odunukwe thought about it and said, "Sure, why don't you give Bob my number so that he can call me and we can talk about it? I'm very busy at the moment and I can't see anyone right now." And the security man walked away, went back to the gate and saw Bob waiting and said, "My boss would really love to discuss more about this listing with you. Why don't you give him a call? He's not available to meet in person at the moment." So Bob thanked the security man and walked away with the phone number. A week later, he called Mr. Odunukwe on the phone and said, "Hey, I'm really so interested in the property you posted. You said you wanted 900 million naira for it." Chief Odunukwe said, "Yes, that's how much I want to sell it. It's a good deal and the location is really nice, and I'm hoping to close the deal as soon as possible because I have other interested buyers." So Bob said, "Sure, why don't we meet up in a week in a hotel? Let's talk over this business. I'm going to bring the money and you can come over with the land document so that we can seal the deal." Chief Odunukwe was happy. He thanked Bob for the phone call and that was it. So a week later, which was December 1st of 2019, Bob called Chief Odunukwe and invited him to Atikan Beach Resort Hotel in Ajah, Lagos State. So the next thing he did was he called his lawyer and told him to draft a purchase and sales agreement so that he can meet Bob in the hotel and conclude the deal. As soon as Chief Odunukwe's lawyer prepared the documents, Chief Odunukwe set off to meet Bob. This man he's never met, he doesn't know anything about him. So when he got to the hotel, he was invited into this nice, cozy hotel room. But he didn't know that Bob had two other friends already waiting in the room. They were hidden while, he sat down and started discussing business with Bob. Bob pulled out a Ghana must go, that he told Chief Odunukwe that was the money for the property. If he can just sign over the documents so that, they can be on their way. Chief Odunukwe brought out a pen, signed over the documents to Bob, then dragged the Ghana must go next to him, opened it up to confirm that the money was complete. As he bent down to peep into the bag, Bob brought out an axe and hit Chief Odunukwe on the neck. Chief fell to the ground and then he lowered down, brought out a syringe of 2.5 milligram of diazepam and injected into his neck. Chief Odunukwe passed out. Then Bob dragged him to the bathtub and strangled him. When he was sure that Chief Odunukwe has died, he then instructed Cletus, his right-hand man who had been waiting in the room all along, to begin cutting up his body so that they can dispose him quickly and move on to the next plan. They started cutting him up and dumping him into bags so that it was easier for them to move him out of the hotel unnoticed. Now Arinze, who's the hotel receptionist, told them that he knew of an exit. There was a back door in the hotel that no one uses often, that they could definitely take the body through there and no one would see them. And that was how they were able to move the body of Chief Odunukwe through the back door at around 8 p.m. at night and dumped him in the swamp in Ajah area. Then Bob told an Uber driver called Israel Obigaremu, who has been waiting for him outside the hotel while he was busy killing Chief Odunukwe. He told the Uber driver to help him get rid of the car so that, just so that everything was all done and no one would trace anything back to them or to the hotel. Israel did as he was told. He drove Chief's car to his own compound and left it there. Then tension set in same day at his Ikoyi residence as several calls to his mobile phone received no response. At a point, it went dead. Some of his friends, including his lawyer, were contacted, but none could provide a suiting response to his apprehensive family. Initially, his family thought that he had been kidnapped, but since they didn't receive any call from kidnappers, they immediately, waved that off and rushed to the police station to make a formal report. They petitioned the office of the Assistant Inspector General of Police in charge of Zone 2 Command Onikan, the tactical commander of the Ikorodu office of the Zonal Intervention Squad. But unfortunately, by the time his whereabouts were ascertained a month and 2 weeks later, it was too late to save him, as he was not only found dead, but part of his discomposing body had assumed a skeletal transformation. So as the police began investigating, they traced Chief Odunukwe's Forerunner SUV to a building just nearby the hotel, and it turned out to be where the Uber driver Israel Obigoremo was. So they arrested him, and that was how he confessed to the police that I was home, I was resting one afternoon when Bobby came to me and said, "Hey, I have this car, my boss is traveling and I don't know where to park it. Can you please allow me keep this car in your compound until later I can come get it?" Israel said that he's known Bob for a long time and he always takes him around town sometimes when he needs a ride. So he didn't think anything of it. So he allowed Bob to park the car in his compound. So it was his confession that led to the arrest of Bob and the other guys who killed Chief Odunukwe. When Bob was arrested, Bob mentioned the involvement of Arinze, the hotel staff, who had told them where they could pass through to dump the body, and he was also helpful in dismembering the body of Chief Odunukwe. When the police picked up Arinze, the hotel staff, he narrated that on December 1st of 2019, he was on shift and that Bob called him on the phone to inform him that a man who came to visit them died in the hotel room. He begged him to help them evacuate the man from the hotel without anyone's knowledge. He, Arinze, told Bob to wait until it was dark. He led them through the back door of the hotel because he knew the whole terrain, having worked there for a while. So Arinze narrated that when he got to the room, he didn't see blood on the floor, so he assumed that the guest whom Bob told him had died probably died of heart attack or other health issues. He didn't assume that they killed him there. So, and he was promised the sum of 2 million naira if he could help them evacuate the body. That was why he complied. When Cletus was arrested, he confessed that he has known Bob for some time, that he discussed this deal with him 2 weeks ago before its execution, and he promised to pay him 2 million naira at the end. But he did not know how much was involved. He said that the plan was that as soon as Bob hits Chief Odunukwe on the neck and he falls to the ground, he and Arinze would rush in to help Bob. So they did that, but then they realized that Chief Odunukwe didn't die as planned. They kept hitting him on the neck. They injected him and he was still moving. And Chief Odunukwe was calling out for help, thinking that he, Cletus, and Arinze were passerby. He screamed loud, but no one could hear him because there was also a party going on downstairs at the hotel. One by one, the police arrested everyone who was involved in the killing, and they were paraded before the media, and they narrated the same story, told everyone exactly how they lured Chief into the hotel, killed him and disposed his body, all because they wanted his property. After their confessions, the suspects led the policemen to where they dumped Chief Odunukwe's body. They picked up the remains in a bag and then presented it to the media. Photographs were taken and the family took the body for funeral. These men are still awaiting trial. We do not know what their sentence is going to be, but we look forward to a harsh sentence based on the crimes they committed. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed this story. If you have a story recommendation you'd like me to narrate, please drop your comment below or send me a message on Twitter. You can find me at with Oluchi or Media Matters with Oluchi. And please don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you can get weekly updates from me.